Thank you for making the time to join us on the podcast, Ali.
No problem. Thanks for
And
having me.
pleasure. Now, you've been in practice for over 25 years now. I think you started as a cadet in PKF and then went on to become a director at Deloitte and the director at a local firm, and recently went out on your own, I think less than 2 years now, right?
Yeah,
Or
it'll
just
be 2
under.
years in October. Yeah, time's flying when you're having
Fantastic.
fun. I was one
And
of
I
these
think
people. I was one of those people that always knew what I wanted to do. So I pretty much went into full-time work and part-time study, hence the number of years behind me.
quite true. I mean, and in that short time, just going out on your own, you've accumulated so many accolades. I'm struggling to keep up with them now. So well done on that.
I'll give you the heads up. I'm officially retiring from the award circuit. So I've done my dash. I think I'll end on top.
Fantastic. Well, you were talking about you always knew what you wanted to do, and I guess let's start off from that aspect of it. What made you get into accounting, and I guess particularly tax and business services, as a school leaver or as a uni student?
Yeah, my dad is an accountant. I think it's genetic. And we always used to talk about business over the table, to be honest. And I always found it really interesting. Like I would walk into a cafe or a restaurant and I'd kind of work out, how much they might bring in. And, we'd try and work out what profit they made, which is quite odd. I know it's a silly game to play, but that's what I used to do.
I love it.
Yeah.
I do the same.
Yeah, right. I think it's born within me. It's this genetic code, and my little boy who's 10 is exactly the same. And I'm like, oh, honey, I think I know where you're going to land. So, I kind of did this. I was working full time, so I knew what the job was, and I just loved it. I was one of those really lucky people that always wanted to be something, and I became it, and I loved it, and I've loved every moment of it. And the journey has changed as accounting and advisory has changed over those years. And I really like the innovation side and where it's going. So certainly for me, it's always kept me on my toes. It's always been challenging. I'm always learning something new. I'm always trying to be at the forefront of where things are going. So it was the best career choice for me, and I've loved every moment of it.
Fantastic. How do you feel the industry has changed? I mean, you touched the fact that it's changed over the years, and you've been in it for that long to witness all the changes.
Yeah, look, I think it's the technology component. The real game changer was this real-time information allowing us to really advise. Like I remember back at Deloitte, which was in 2010 when, the Xero rep came in, and I was sitting in a boardroom it was dark. I had my managers and directors around me. And at the end of this session, I was like, that is literally a light bulb moment. This is the game changer, because for so long we'd been talking about we're going to give proactive advice, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. But how could we when the systems were so antiquated? It wasn't real time.
You get the shoebox at the end of the year.
That's right. All of the groundwork to even get quarterly reports, which were then 3-4 months down the track, it was nearly impossible. But to then get that real-time data, to then provide real-time conversations, to have real-time advisory, so you could tell a client literally to pull levers as they go to really improve their profit and cash flow. And that's when, for me, accounting changed. And from that moment on, I really moved down that cloud pathway and that real-time information and that integration automation space. And I think I've always loved it, but it was really around the advisory piece, which is what I got so excited about. And that's, for me, where accounting has really changed. Some of it is still the same. There's always compliance. And the technology has just helped us to make that component easier if we choose to use it.
And it's interesting because, I mean, there's still a lot of firms that, even though they have Xero, I don't think they're having the conversations that you're talking about. They still do things the same way, but they have access to it, but they're not having the conversations that you're having.
And this is what I say to a lot of people. The tech isn't the bit that's going to be the game changer. It's going to be what you do with it. It's going to be how you re-engineer your processes, how you re-educate your staff, and how you educate your clients. And those are the really difficult parts of the tech. The tech is actually incredibly easy. It's all of the change management around it that makes it so difficult. And that's where I think people have some levels of fear or comfort, and they think, I can't do it, I don't have the skills. Like, there's this huge conversation around what is advisory. Every accountant does it every single day. They just don't commoditize it. I do. I've flipped the way that I try and win a client, and I've flipped the way that I treat a client, because the compliance is just the outcome, but it's every single piece before it that is advisory. And that's really how I have manufactured this advisory type component in my business. I value-tize it.
Okay. And I guess, what were the highlights of that journey of the last 25 years?
I think the connections I've made in the industry, the ability to provide, really relevant advice to clients, really becoming a virtual CFO, that's the bit that I've really enjoyed. And the team members that I've been able to take on the journey, like, a few of the team I actually met at a prior firm, and they came across with me. And when I met them, they were doing the stock standard tax and accounting, but these guys are absolute superstars, and they wanted to do more, but they were so inhibited. And so kind of branching out and showing them what is available and what more there is, it completely transforms, your career, and it makes these people into stars, like, because they basically have superpowers that other people don't have, and around that advisory piece. And, I'm all about playing to your strengths. And when you see people that have that ability, it can completely transform their career. And that's the bit I've really loved, seeing people really find a passion for it and actually enjoy their job.
Okay. Well, I mean, speaking of that, like, is that one of your criteria, what you look for in an accountant, like that advisory piece? When you call someone a superstar, what does that really mean?
It means that there's something about them that stands out to me. So in my career, I've managed a lot of people, and some people just have that extra little bit. They either love what they do, or they're passionate about what they do, or they've got a really great skill set that may not have been explored. And my role is to really find that and support and encourage them to basically commercialize that and become a specialist in it. And that's why I call them superstars. They go above and beyond. It's more than just the 9 to 5. It's something that motivates them. And they have a why, they have a purpose. And I think that for me is what I look for, the why. Like, why are you doing it? What's in it? What do you want to get out of it?
Well, I mean, for a lot of people, yeah, it's just a job, and it was kind of better than an arts degree in terms of a stable career, and that's about it.
And that's okay. That's okay if that's what you want. And we all need those people in practice. But then you just find the special ones, just every now and again. It doesn't come up all the time, but every now and again there'll be some special ones, and you just think, oh gosh, there's something more.
Is it innate, or is it a skill that's developed? And if so, like, what would you advise an accountant in a firm that's kind of rising through their career right now to develop?
Be open to opportunities, I think. Yeah, I think it's the opportunities. If something's presented to you, do it. Even if there's a little bit of fear attached to it, or you're not quite sure, do your research, go a bit above and beyond, become a champion in something, be known for something, stand out, and don't be afraid to kind of blow your own trumpet a little bit. I guess we all have to. That's something I learned being in a Big Four. You have to kind of promote, what is it that you do? What makes you different? Why do you deserve this? You kind of learn to sell yourself a little bit. And I think you can't be cocky about it. You actually have to have the skills to prove it. But I think if you can do that, that's really what makes you stand out, and that's how you can progress in your career. Yeah.
Have you got examples from your career, or from, I guess, people that have done that really well?
Yeah. So when I I'd always had a tourism and hospitality specialisation, but I didn't really know it or understand what it was at the time. I just knew the industry really well. And when I went to Deloitte, their marketing person, basically, because I was a director at the time and I was heading towards the pathway to partnership, she said, Al, you've got to have a point of difference. What makes you different from the person next to you? Because you might have the same level of skill with the same number of years behind you. And I said, well, I do focus in a particular area. And she said, that's it. And it goes around the marketing, really. She said, every single time you speak to a partner, a director, a client, anytime you go out to the market, that's what you tell them. That's what you say. And so that's what I started to do. I got on LinkedIn and I started just posting things that I was already reading anyway around tourism and hospitality and connecting with anybody in that industry. I'd also go to industry events. And I just kind of got known for it. And that helped me stand out from the crowd. And so that's, that specialization is that's where I've come from. And then obviously when I started All In, we do focus on tourism and hospitality, and we still go out with that clear, consistent message. Yes, we do other work, but it's that specialization that brings people to us. Like, we get referrals from other accountants and lawyers and bankers for tourism and hospitality, because they know that's what we do.
How is that niche working out for you during COVID? Because some would say that's the worst possible niche to be in: tourism, hospitality, and leisure. You can't get worse than that.
Surprisingly well. So I guess
more about that.
There's government stimulus, obviously, at the moment. We're also in Adelaide, right? So we've done fairly well out of most of the states. But a lot of my clients had to pivot, and they've done that. And I'm so proud of them for doing that. So they've still got functioning, viable businesses. I mean, these were viable businesses pre-COVID. So they're always going to find a way. But the other thing is, we are diversified. So yes, we specialise, and yes, we have a high number of tourism and hospitality clients, but we've also got a breadth of clients in lots of different industries, varying from startup to very large. So we have a very diversified client base, and that has helped us kind of weather the storm. And in fact, during COVID, we had our most productive and profitable month in April. So it just goes to show that sometimes it's how you work it. And we got paid. The cash flow came too.
Fantastic. I mean, have you had to make any changes or adaptations or help your clients in any way to get them through that and to help you get that record sort of month?
Two things that we did. One is that we worked remotely. There was not one single change that we made, because we set up to be able to do that if we needed to. We also outsourced. So we had to have the processes, the tech, the skills, the communication channels. So none of that changed. But what we did for our clients was, I think, what a lot of other accountants did. We're very good at communicating and marketing to them, but we put everything on warp speed. So the connection points were many. So it wasn't just through the socials. It was through personal emails from me. It was from newsletters. It was from, I was doing Zoom videos once a week. We ran webinars. So the communication touch points to help our clients through that process and educate them was enormous. And I made the decision that my team would literally do bums down, heads down, bums up, just get the work done, because I needed that cash to flow. And I would focus on all of the client communications because I knew how to deal with that. And that would be the most stressful part. And so we weathered that storm. So we didn't do JobKeeper for all of our clients. We literally educated so that they could do it themselves, and the ones that couldn't, we then took over. So we had more work because we were helping with the compliance JobKeeper, but charging for it. And then we were doing our normal compliance work as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
And back to that journey question, I guess you told me some of the highlights, and I guess the main one for you would be starting the practice.
Yeah.
Over 25. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, I think landing my first job, without any study behind me, that was a pretty big deal. And so I was so super happy to start. And you know what? I remember every single promotion. Like, I started really in, I guess, admin, and then moved to accounting fairly quickly. And then, you go from accountant, accountant to junior accountant to intermediate to senior to manager. And then I moved from manager to go to the Big Four as a director. And that was a really big move for me. It was really scary because I'd worked for 13 years, literally in one firm, but that firm had merged. So it started really small, like one partner, and then merged to become Man Judd, which then became PKF and became quite large. It's now BDO. And so I'd actually worked with that one firm and that one partner for 13 years. And so it was a really big move for me to get to Deloitte. And I did that because at the time, unfortunately, I'd had my first baby, and the feedback I was getting was I wasn't going to get any further in my career. And I was having people kind of be promoted above me that had less experience and less skill set and less client communication skills. And I thought, well, that isn't really fair. So that's why I moved to Deloitte, being an employer of choice for women at the time. It was an amazing experience. I learned so much from that. The IP was just amazing. And that was a huge turning point in my career. I'd worked for a senior female partner, and I'd never worked with another more senior female in my whole life. So that was a really different experience, and it changed me as a manager. It changed me as a person, because I had quite a male-dominated manager type format, because that's what I'd always learned. And then I learned that I could actually be a bit more of myself, and that it was okay to be a mum and still be a successful career person, and all of those things that come with that. So that was a really big career moment for me. And then I think the next defining one was obviously starting All In, and that was born from sheer frustration of I actually felt like a bit of a fraud. I was delivering to clients all these beautiful cloud integrated ecosystems, and I couldn't deliver it in the firm that I was in. I got to a certain point and then was inhibited because I didn't want to go any further, which was fine, because that's what they wanted and that was their choice. And I said, look, this is really my pathway. It's something I'm so passionate about. Is it okay? And they said, yeah, that's fine. And so we parted on really amicable terms, and hence the start of All In. And I must say, I never imagined that it would go as well as it has, or resonated as much as it has. But the clients are just literally rolling through the door. So we must be onto something.
Did you have clients follow you from sort of practice to practice over the years?
Yeah. Yes, I've had some clients for 25 years and more. In fact, a lot of them.
Wow.
Yeah. So I guess to be honest, I think every client I've ever worked on has moved with me.
Okay. That helps a lot.
Oh, and that's what I'm saying. Like, I guess we started with a really big bang, but the way I describe it is we're a 25-year startup. I had a really solid client base behind me. And the bigger the client base, the more referrals you get, the easier it is to grow and to build. And a lot of those clients are amazing referrers. And, I'll ask them for a testimonial and they'll be like, oh, yeah, what do you want? And I've been very, very lucky, but I'm very loyal to my clients, and I do think about them a lot, and I do look after them, and I think that's maybe why they're so sticky. Like, I think when you truly do care about a person's business and want them to succeed and grow, they feel that, they know it's genuine.
Yeah, and I think authenticity always wins over people. At the end of the day, it's still a people business, isn't it? Despite
honestly,
the numbers.
Yes, 100%. It's a people business, and it's about managing those relationships and really delivering. Because they just think that every accountant delivers the same thing. They don't realize there are differences. And but what they want from you is that understanding and support. And the first thing I always ask a client is, what's your why? And as soon as I know that, it's a completely different conversation. It's a completely different outcome for them. It's a completely different service delivery. And I customize that relationship based upon their why. Yeah.
You do the Simon Sinek why thing?
Sorry?
You do the Simon Sinek why thing?
Yes, I'm a big believer of the Simon Sinek, the why. It's more powerful. Do you know, every client that comes in, we get them to fill out a form just with all their details, and we ask them about their why. It is so powerful. And then we actually just we put on this really simple certificate and we send it to them, basically saying, we're here to support you and empower your why, and this is it. And we try and enforce that. So every single time I'll have a meeting with them, I'll start with the why. And every single time I send them information, it's, this is the why you're doing it. And it actually is quite empowering to them. Like, they really feel like you're part of that journey. And it's just putting the why and giving it some life. They've given it to me. I haven't given it to them. I'm just giving it life.
Interesting. It's a good approach.
It works.
Is there anything else that I guess makes you guys different or stand out besides, you said, like the conversations? I mean, you're on Xero, but a lot of firms are on Xero now. What else do you guys do that's different?
Yeah, it's the specialization number as well. But it's more of the advisory focus, so kind of flipping that compliance on its head and saying we're going to deliver all these services and compliance is the outcome. But the other thing we do is, obviously in Adelaide, there's not a huge market for cloud integrators. And so we're kind of the only ones really active in that space here. And predominantly all of our clients are from Adelaide. We have one or two from New South Wales and Melbourne, but not many. And so in Adelaide, that makes us different. And I have to say, a lot of firms say they're Xero and they can do it. But the reality is we've been doing this for over 10 years. So we know it really, really well. And like I said before, it's not just the tech. So we don't say, here's your cloud stack. We say, this is what we think your cloud stack should be. Let's implement it, re-engineer your processes, train and re-educate, and then hold your hand and deliver you advisory. So it's that whole journey from beginning to end that makes us different, because some people jump in at different spots. We can do the whole gamut.
It's not just giving them cloud, because when you say cloud integrator, I was going to say what you mean by that. So the way I interpret it is, it's not just giving them cloud for their business. It's giving them a whole bunch of other tools and apps and suites that allow the business to run in the cloud seamlessly integrated together. Is that
Yep, that's correct? Right. So we choose cloud products that they need in their business, whether that be accounting, point of sale, HR. We find cloud products. We then integrate those products so that they talk to each other. We then automate as much of that as we can through the back end. Then we recreate.
Do you do that yourself, or do you hire someone?
No, we do that ourselves.
Wow.
It's pretty easy. And this is the thing. The tech is the easy bit. It's actually the re-engineering of process and re-education. And so then we'll actually look at what were the processes before and what do they need to be. And then we look at then training the staff and then giving, I guess, working out what they need as outcomes, and we then deliver on those. So it is, I guess, the bigger picture.
What's been the biggest impact? I mean, because obviously there's got to be a selling point of ROI for doing that. What's the biggest impact on clients of having that cloud integration from you guys?
Yeah, efficiencies, number one, getting time back. If I can give you some examples. So we have a large pub group who has about 6 pubs. They had a bookkeeper in each pub. They were using Mob. We pushed them up to Xero, integrated their point of sale and HR with Receipt Bank. They now have half a bookkeeper, and they re-engineered to bring in a CFO for strategy. So when you consider that each of those bookkeepers was around 50 to 60K a year, and the savings that they got, and then they got this real-time data, and now they've got a CFO for strategy, they've just purchased another pub. They wouldn't have been able to do that if they'd still been on this desktop,
old school
antiquated systems. Yeah. And another one was a builder where he had no oversight of his business and he was doing really well, but we literally moved him up to the cloud, integrated, things like Xero Projects, Receipt Bank, just as pretty simple stock standard ones, nothing out of the box. He now has real-time insight into his business. His profit has doubled since bringing us on, and he's doubled his team members. And I was filming a testimonial today with him who he literally says that there is power in what we do. And we work in tourism and hospitality, which is really low margin. So what I'm trying to do is deliver you back profit so that you can make real-time decisions, gain efficiencies and cost savings, And, the back end accounting compliance work really is just, making sure that there's a bit of a review and a few click of the buttons, but you're not paying 5-6K for compliance work. They're paying 5-6K for advisory, and it's improving their business.
Okay, I can see the pitch now. It's a good pitch.
Yeah. It works.
I can tell. Now, I was going to ask you something. I guess there aren't too many female-run practices in Australia or in Adelaide especially. Do you feel it's been a different journey for you as a female in the accounting industry compared to if you were a male? Can you speak a little bit to that?
Yeah. Look, I have to tell you, most probably every female I talk to that is in a senior position has got stories to tell. I certainly do have stories to tell. And it's despite some of those stories, it's I think my resilience and how it egged me on to just keep going. I was told on many occasions, this is where you're going to stay, especially when I started to have children. People assumed that I no longer wanted a career, and that's fine if you don't, but I did. And so I feel like I've had to fight for every position. I feel like I've had to show my worth. But certainly going out on our own, I even felt that I needed to get credibility. And so that's what going into some of those awards were for, was to build that credibility so that people understood that what we were doing was something special and something different, and that we were being recognised for that. If I was a male, would I have done that? Most probably not, to be honest. I wouldn't have felt the need to. I feel like I've had to fight for every position that I've ever had, and at times decisions have been fair and other times they've been unfair. But it certainly made me stronger. It certainly made me more resilient, and I can be quite strategic. People tend to underestimate me, and so I like to prove them wrong.
That's a perfect attitude. It gives you a bit of hunger.
It does. It makes me hungry, definitely. Don't ever tell me I can't, because I will.
I'm kind of the same in that regards. Do you find it's changed now, or is there a particular point that you feel the landscape changed for females?
I think it's changing. Okay. We're not there yet. I can still walk into a room and not be heard. This classic of being around a boardroom and putting your opinion forward and nobody listening, and then a male saying the same thing and they get listened to. It happens. And, going to conferences and seeing all males on the panel, what we like to call manels, it still happens. But I'm hopeful that things are changing. I know some really strong, incredibly intelligent, powerful women in this industry that are changing it up and are here to be heard. We are just as capable. But what I love about this is that it just provides the diversity. Just the diversity of thought, of having different people in a room, and whether that be culture, race, religion, gender, just as long as there's diversity, I think that that's where we can help more people and support more people rather than just having one point of view. And so I do believe it's changing. I've got 2 girls, so I hope that they don't have to experience some of the things that I've had to experience, which have been pretty poor. Things like I was told, I know how you got where you got. And I'm like, why? Because it's what you look like. Or who did you have to connect with or have a relationship with to get that job? I don't think a male would have to have those questions asked of them. And when I was pregnant, I was told I was fat. I mean, you don't say that or do that. Or I was told my career was going to end. That's not okay. So I'm hoping that those things will change, and I have seen some change in that area, but I think it takes people to be strong to call out some of the poor behaviour, because maybe some people don't recognise that they're doing it.
No, I'm really glad you spoke about that, because it's not something that gets spoken about very often in the industry.
And I have to tell you, as I said before, every single woman that I have spoken to has a story. And That's the sad thing. And I want for there to be one day where they don't have that story, where there has been fairness and equality, and they don't feel like they had to fight for it.
What else? I mean, you said like we're getting there. What else do you think needs to happen, or any like one or two things that definitely need to be fixed or changed, or that would have the biggest impact?
I think storytelling is a really powerful thing. So giving people the power to tell their stories, and just having both males and females recognizing that they're still not there with equality. There is still gender pay gaps. There are still superannuation gaps for women. There are still fewer women in senior roles leading firms. So providing opportunities to people based upon their worth, not on their ethnicity or gender, and trying to reduce that subconscious bias. Like, we all have to kind of look deep within ourselves and saying, are we, or do we have a subconscious bias? And it starts with us. It starts with the individual. It starts with the person. And if you see poor behaviour, call it out and help somebody on that journey. Or if you're in a boardroom and, you know, a woman is talking and that question isn't heard, say, no, hey, like, Aly just said something. What do you think? It's actually calling it out, and it's the smallest little things that can have the most difference. But I think it's just starting with us and making sure that we're not giving our own biases into the decision-making process, but trying to keep it a bit more open. Never assume.
Yes, 100%. I always keep saying that to all of my staff as well. You mentioned there are some very strong, I guess, powerful females in the industry that you respect. Anyone that comes to mind that you admire or has mentored you? Or?
Lillette Khalija, Kylie Parker, Nat Lennon, Kelly Chard, Lee Duffield, Heather Smith. You know,
wow, a lot of names.
And there's more. There's so many more. And this is the thing. Like, often I see people say, "Oh, there's an all-male panel. There's no females that could talk on this issue." Of course there is. Of course there is. They're just not looking hard enough. And in fact, Lillette, Kylie, and Kelly have started a business called Account Tech Global, which is basically women speakers. If you want a woman, go on here. There's a plethora. Pick. You know, I think,
no more excuses. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I think you've just got to ask the right questions, or do a little bit more research and do a bit more delving. Don't just go to the people that have always been gone to. There's more there.
What's it been like to balance work and family as a female now that you started your own business? And I love the comparison between being a director in a firm and being a mum, and kind of balancing versus running your own business now.
Yeah. Do you know, my eldest is 14, nearly 15, so I've been doing it for a long time. And when I moved to Deloitte, it was for that reason. I wanted to have that fluidity between my work and my home, and the recognition that I'm a mum. So I've been doing part-time work, so between 3 to 4 days for that whole time. And I've always been really, really conscious around setting boundaries and keeping boundaries around that. So with every employer that I've had post having the children, I've been really open with them around, okay, these are my boundaries. This is what I can and cannot do. And by setting those boundaries and having really clear communication, I've been able to function just as well and produce as much productivity as anybody else. But I do have the ability to switch on and off because I love what I do. It's not a chore. So with the advancement of technology, it certainly helped that I can be anywhere and being able to do other work or be with the kids. But what I'm doing at the moment is I do a 4-day week, but I do drop-offs and pickups for the kids. And then on Fridays, I have that off with the weekend with the kids as well. So when I'm with the kids, I'm present with them, I'm engaging with them, I turn off my tech. And then obviously when I'm able, the tech is on and I'm just banging through it. So I think for me, it's different for every single person. And I know that men now are spending more time with their families and want that flexibility also. And they've got this bias where people presume they don't want to, whereas they may. So that's changing as well for people, where I think we need to provide flexibility in what works best for every single person. But what I've found is that every single person is different. So what works for me may not work for somebody else. But how I've done it is through very clear communication and boundary setting. And it works. And the difference between being a director and a partner for me wasn't much different, because I had my own client base at Deloitte. I've got my own client base now. The difference more is the volume and managing the volume.